Hey, excuse me. Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. It's a snowy Sunday, lazy morning, and it was rough to get out of bed. I stayed up way too late, as per normal, on a 3-day weekend. So I have off Monday, so I immediately fall into lazy habits. How's everybody doing? This is such a great comic. This is the first appearance of Alpha Flight. I got this off the rack. So this is the second X-Men comic that I got once I decided I was collecting X-Men. This was the third X-Men comic I bought off the newsstand. The first being 114. The second one I could find was 119. And then from 119 on, I collected X-Men for the next, I don't know, I'd say 20 years. Look at this. So I'll filibuster a bit until people wind in. We got Matt Bauer in the chat. How you doing, Matt? How's everything going? Good to talk to you. Good to see. Matt's off Twitter, so it's hard to communicate. I'm working on some other stories. Email me or call me. I think I sent you my phone number. Heroic Tales 2 is still available for the time being. On this link, I'm gonna make a merch store. I want to make a permanent merch store for all my stuff to keep it constantly active. So when I make like cards that I can hand out at Comic Cons, I don't have to worry that it'll send them to a dead link. So that's what I'll be working on. We got Marcus. How you doing, Marcus? How's everything? How's your dad? And I got my blessing from Zach Tan. All is well in the universe. All right. So we got a couple of people in the chat. I'll just filibuster for a minute or two. Renzo is working on Patriarch number 1. I forget what exact number. There's 45 pages of story that I'm writing. The only thing I have to do for Heroic, like the writing is done. Renzo is about 40% done, 35% done with the artwork. Normally by now I would start launching the campaign, but I want to wait till the comic's done, and then launch the campaign, or at least 90% done. That way you look like a superhero. The Scotty method, Oh, it'll be out in 6 months, and that next thing they get it in 2. Eddie is doomed. More pages are coming in, and then talk to a bunch of my artists that are working on stuff. It's like, can we get some pages, guys? I know I said take your time, but let's get some pages done. Because everybody working for me right now, as soon as they're done with their story, they can go with the next Heroic Tales, so we can get issue 4 out really quick. Issue 3 has to come out next. That's 2 stories that Renzo's drawing. The only one that is out of sequence, meaning I just wrote it because an artist wanted to work with me, so it's not part of the main sequence of stories, is the Printer's Devil. But I even have a second story to that, so I would like to get them all at least done, and then I could get stories to back up it. Because I want to up production is basically what I'm talking about. I'm babbling. I stayed up too late, woke up too early. There's something else I wanted to say. I forget. Some Tim Hortons coffee from my Ben Soto Halloween mug, even though it's nowhere near Halloween. I have like 4 mugs that I have in rotation. What do we got? Oh, people saying hello to each other. No channel news to report. I'm still on this weird 3 to 11 schedule. The way it goes in construction is they allocate money for each shift, and they do it in 2-month intervals. So it's going. So February 20th, I think, is the last is the money that's for the shift that's been allocated. So I'm working on this shift until at least February 20th, and then they'll let us, the week before they'll let us know if the money's been allocated, and they'll do it again for another 2 months. I have a feeling they're going to do it again for another 2 months. This airport is supposed to be operational by June. That ain't happening if they drop all these extra shifts, because they're working around the clock. As I'm leaving, other people are coming in. That ain't happening if they're just working one shift. You know what I mean? I don't see. Sounds exciting. Looking forward to more Heroic Tales. Thank you so much. I'm excited to bring it out there. If I was to stop writing today, I still have comics scripts for about another 7 or 8 comics. So, but I keep having ideas, and I keep wanting to write stuff. Like last night or 2 nights ago on the way home, I was like, oh, okay, I have a story that's on the back burner, meaning there's no reason it doesn't tie into anything. It ties into itself, but I just think it would be a character that would just be a breakout character. And I was like, well, I'm going to put that off because I need to tell these stories first. And then on the way home, I came up with a different opening. And I'm like super excited that's how I write things. I'm just super excited to write it. I write it, get it out of my system, and then I figure out which order it should be in production. Well, we're just fixing. They knocked down a terminal because it was just, I think it was the first terminal at the airport, and then they're rebuilding it, because modernizing it and everything like that. So it's not like we're making a new airport. We're just making, for the past 12 years, I've been going back and forth between LaGuardia and JFK. So we're just fixing up the 2 existing airports. LaGuardia was like a third world airport for the longest time, and now the focus is on JFK. Good morning, hey Yang, how you doing? How's everything? I haven't seen you lately. How's everything? You okay? I know you're hard at work with your campaign. Looking forward to getting everything. The undying sun, right? So anyway, I guess we got enough people here. I've been filibustering for 8 minutes. I just had a thought and it immediately left, which is how everything usually works in my noggin. So let's check out this wonderful comic. This is one of my favorite comics of all time. Can you see that? Still only 35 cents. You know what that means? That means in a month or two, it's going to 40 cents. That means that DC raised their prices to 40 cents and Marvel's busting on them. They'll for a month or two, and then they succumb to the market forces and raise their prices to 40 cents. As you can see, it says copyright 1979, Marvel Comics Group. And then we got this weird but effective use of color. So we got this, airplane in the background with the full team of X-Men. And I never noticed this before. This is the first time I'm noticing this. This is, I would just casually, I'm literally, the last time I looked at this was probably 20 years ago. And in my memory, this was a John Byrne cover. And then as I took it out of the box last night, I was like, oh, it's a Dave Cockrum cover. But no, it's a Budinsky and Terry Austin cover. So Terry Austin, that's why it looks familiar. It's got that Terry Austin ink to it, but it's Budinsky cover. Wow. Why didn't John Byrne or Dave Cockrum draw it? I don't know why. But we got Chaos in Canada, which is an apt title because that's what's going on in Canada right now. Geez, try to send postage to Canada. I just got confirmation that the last Heroic Tales from my campaign went out. I finally got to the backer. It was a Canadian order, and my wife just gets a kick out of checking all the whatever it's called, the notifications. So she's like, "Oh, the last one finally got delivered." It sat in a Canadian post office for weeks before it finally got delivered. I literally sent things to Warsaw, one to Malaysia. I'm trying to think of all the different places. Yeah, one went to Malaysia. That guy was really cool because he ordered Hero Tales 1, and it was in Canada. He lived in Canada when I sent it to 1, when he ordered 1, and then 2 is in Malaysia. So when I typed his name into the pirate ship, his Canadian address immediately popped up, and I was like, what? And I double checked. So I sent it to him, and then when he got it, he emailed me and said, what was the difference in postage? And I was like, yeah, I didn't want to be like all greedy and everything like that. So I was like, and he's like, no, I insist. What was the difference? And I was like, it was literally another $9.80. And he PayPal'd me $10. I didn't ask him to, but that's the kind of backers. He said, I'm supporting you. I like what you're doing. And I'm not asking you to eat on shipping because he took a job opportunity in Malaysia. I was like, thank you so much. That's really nice. And I just got another email from a guy who, for whatever reason, he's just off the internet. He asked me when issue number 2 is coming out, and told him it's out. So he's like, oh, can I get it? How many variant copies? I was like, there's 3 covers. He's like, okay. So he PayPal'd me, and that's going out on Tuesday. Just nice to hear that kind of stuff. And I can understand people just staying off the internet. I purposely cut down on my circle of internet drama. It's just not good. It's not good. Yang Yao Zella says, yes, the wife's out of town for the week, so I have to write as much as I can. Oh, okay. The wife is out of town. The cat is away, the mouse will play. And when you're at our age, the playing is writing role playing and comic book stuff. I had a friend who was why are you always hanging out with John? It's Friday night. You go to John's house. And then she realized, oh, go to John's house. Like, you're sitting around playing role-playing games. Like, it's the safest place to be. If you're going to go out, that's what he said. He goes, I could go out with John, and we're in his house pretending to be superheroes, or I could go out with my other friends who are in bars. And she's like, go to John's. She totally doesn't understand the role-playing stuff. One of my friends, she's like the normiest norm you could possibly imagine. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think she watches like Marvel movies. I think she just watches like soap operas and like chick flicks. And then her husband, who's like a big executive guy, pretends to be a superhero every once in a while. It's funny. I think this is about the time Glynis Oliver won her coloring awards for X. Oh, I was going to talk about the coloring. Thank you for reminding me. That was nice of him. Yes, it was. It was absolutely nice. So I was talking about this coloring over here, and I got distracted by it wasn't Dave Cockrum and it wasn't John Byrne doing the art. But look at this bizarre coloring. We got the X-Men in bright superhero colors, all dynamic and everything, and then we have this little like blue darkness, and then the purple outlines of the characters. Now, the Alpha Flight have very colorful costumes. They could just have easily have put them, but it works. They're in the darkness. They're mysterious. We don't know who they are yet, so it makes it look sinister. And they didn't put it in black because that would have just made a big silhouette, like a merc. So it's this dark black over here, and then this purple, and then they can't just have this as the same color, everything blended in. So it's just so weird. Simple colors. Like nowadays, everything would be colored. Everything would, and that is one of my problems with a lot of the modern comics. And if you see it in my comics, let me know too. And anything I criticize other people for, please let me know if I do it. Like, I'm big. My biggest, most unforgivable thing is storytelling in comics. If you have bad storytelling, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Storytelling to me is the single most important thing in the comics. But look at this, just interesting color. Then in the background, but if this was a modern color, everything would be computerize every window, everything, and to me, it almost turns into like a stained glass window, and you lose the depth. Like you can see that these guys are in the front. There's a distance to them over here. Then you can see that there's a distance back here. Like this gives the illusion of three dimensions, and you lose that when you computer colorize every little detail. So it's cool that you can color everything, but you don't need to. It's comics. It's its own unique art form. Yeah, my place is safer. Yeah. If you got a jealous wife, come to my house. We're playing role playing games or Sellers of Catan in the basement. I think the art is more important. It's a visual medium, and this is reinforced by the minimal amount of text. Yes. Well, let me clarify. We agree, but storytelling is the art. So let me. I'll give examples of what I mean by storytelling when I open up the comic. But we are in agreement here. In comics, storytelling is each panel, the art connecting to the next panel and conveying a story. So we are in agreement here. The tasteful thickness. So I'll explain further when I get inside, but we agree. Yes, when I say storytelling, I am talking about the art. Now, the art could be wonderful George Perez art, it could be wonderful John Byrne art, or it could be crummy Phil Moskowitz. Phil Moskowitz is always my go-to guy because I don't want to insult a real person. I use the name Phil Moskowitz. But Phil Moskowitz's crummy art could be elevated if the storytelling is good, meaning, I'll illustrate when I open up the comic, but we are in agreement here. Omnipro B, good morning. Alpha Flight, let's go. Okay, on that note, we will go inside. So let's open up. You can see how this is my actual copy that I got. I think I got this in the 7-Eleven. Can't talk about the storytelling on a splash page because you need more than one panel. But this is let's run down the credits. So we got a mouthful of marbles. We got Chris Claremont and John Byrne, author, co-plotters, pencilers. Terry Austin, inker. Tom Orzechowski, whose name I'm sure I'm massacring, letterer. Glennis Wynn, colorist, wife of Len Wynn. Roger Stern, editor. And Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. This is another interesting use of colors. So this is the War Room of the Canadian Ministry of Defense, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I recognize Weapon X Hudson and the one you codenamed Wolverine, but who in blazes are the others? They're called the X-Men, Prime Minister. They're an unofficial team of superheroes. We also believe that, like Wolverine, they're all mutants. Okay, so this to me is one of those little like weird things in comics. So this is the Prime Minister of Canada, and he doesn't know who the X-Men are. So are the X-Men world famous or are they sneaky? This is like editorial needs to make up their mind, because in X-Men 95, the world was threatened by Count Nefaria, and they said we couldn't find the Avengers, so we called in the X-Men. You know what I mean? And then that led into 98, 99 with Simon Bolivar Thresk was like, we got to get rid of the X-Men. So you got to tell me that the leader of a nation, I mean, yeah, Canadians are kind of clueless about things, doesn't know who a major super team is in the United States, where they share the longest border, I don't know. You know what I mean? So are the X-Men a sneaky secret organization, or are they public knowledge? We gotta, because at this point they did do like world-saving operations. I don't know. It's like Batman. Is he an urban legend, or is he a household name? Where are we? So at this point, I'll check out the comic and then the comments and go back and forth. The other thing I want to talk about, the coloring over here. Interesting use of color. You know, we got Cyclops' beam is like a faded pink, and then everything on the screen is like a muted yellow. We got this blue over here. This guy in green I almost didn't see. And then the full color people to put the focus on them. Just interesting color. I mean, had they colored everything crystal clear and crisp, everything would look gorgeous. It would be like at the first glance, you're like, yeah, but then I think it creates like a confusion in your mind. It doesn't give you this illusion of 3D. But okay. Canadian Ministry of Defense, that was a good joke. They can't even stop their own country from being invaded. They invite the invaders in. So here we go. Now we can talk about storytelling. Look at that face. Jeez. So beyond what we know, very little. They're dangerous in a fight. They're based near New York, and there are hints of possible connection to the U.S. government. I don't care if they have definite connections to the Boy Scouts. They have Weapon X, and I want him back. We spent a lot of money and resources developing and training him, not to mention your group as well. I won't see it thrown away. I realize that, Prime Minister, but Wolverine resigned. Then he can simply unresign, Mr. Hudson. Understand? Yes, sir. I won't fail you like last time. X-Men 109. If anyone on Earth has a prayer of corralling Wolverine, it's Alpha Flight. And a button is pushed, and an alert signal flashes across the continent, summoning people. So here you're sticking the cards in there. You know, you saw that in Alpha Flight number 1. And then we have So this is storytelling. The thickness, tasteful thickness. So from over here, we have two people talking, and then you see him facing a machine, hitting a button, and then it immediately tells us who he's summoning. No confusion. That is storytelling. The storytelling is the ability of the art and the panels to tell the story. So storytelling is just a flow from panel to panel in a logical sequence that lets the reader know what's going on without confusion. You know what I mean? Like, bad storytelling is the example that I always give, and I feel bad saying it because it was Howard Chaykin's American Flag. Oh my God, each panel was gorgeously illustrated by a master. It's one of the best comic book artists I could think of, and then textured with this wonderful inking and coloring. But each panel was like a portrait that had little to do with the connective tissue of the next panel, and you relied on reading to figure out what was going on. A person who can't read, an illiterate, could read this comic and figure out the gist of the story. They won't get all the details. That's what the words are for. So do you understand? When I say storytelling is the most important, and the storytelling is art, it's more than just good drawing. I mean, this is fun drawing over here. I mean, look at this Nightcrawler, and this is all great drawing. But you know, anybody could. Image Comics, they drew a gorgeous panel, and then the next panel, the characters weren't. You know, there is like if a character's walking this way, you know, like over here, perfect example. We got he's called Vindicator at this point. So Vindicator is over here, and this freak of nature is over here. The next panel, we invert it, and he's over here, but he's facing the same direction. He's facing the same direction. Our mind rotates it, and it's flawless. And then he's putting his hand on the machine, and the next panel is a close-up of the machine. It's just a perfect, like, flow. And then we go to the people that he's summoning, you know, one card for each person. We totally understand. It makes sense. There's nothing to pull us out of the story. Whereas Howard Chaykin would have these two guys talking, and then over here, literally like a woman putting on a stocking, you know, and then you're like, what's going on? And then back, you know, that's fine. If like they're talking over here and they're summoning the Alpha Flight team. If they're talking, and then the next panel would have been this, and then, I mean, we read it. Meanwhile, the X-Men, it would make, but it would also jar us for a second. They knew, they're masters at this point, that this scene is separate from this scene, so we filled in this. You know, it's like storytelling is like, I guess in a movie it would be bad editing. You know what I mean? the camera flows a cut to the next cut flawlessly without jarring. We've all seen a movie where the cuts are just like, what? That's what storytelling is. So I hope I'm being clear. So now we got we got North Star. I just always loved Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight was a perfect example of less is more. Like, they only had like 2 appearances for like the longest time before Alpha Flight #1. So we filled in the details and we made them super cool, to the point I gotta say the X-Men, the Alpha Flight comic was a little disappointing. We got Shaman, Snowbird, Sasquatch, and Aurora. And it's funny because whenever you make a super team or a superhero from a country outside of the United States, you always tend to like flavor them with that country. Like, you never just have the Argentinian superhero Power Man, and he's just a guy with invulnerability, can fly. Like, you always try to find out something about Argentina and then base. The United States has the luxury of having superheroes of everything. Dogman, Spider-Man, Cyclops, Batman, Superman. And then you go to Australia and it's Kangaroo Boy. And you go to New Zealand and it's whatever, I guess Hobbit Boy. You know what I mean? Like, you go to England and it's going to be something about King Arthur. You go to Russia and it's like some sort of Bolshevik man. So like these names for Alpha Flight, to me, they were perfect in that they invoked Canada, but they weren't necessarily like tied to Canada, like North Star. Canada's the Great White North. It works as a Canadian located superhero, but it's not like Maple Leaf Boy. Shaman. All right, to me, yeah, Shaman. That Canada does have a large Indian population, but that could also be anywhere. Snowbird, good name. You know what I mean? Sasquatch, it's so cool. And Aurora, and then Vindicator. Vindicator is wearing the Canadian flag, and as Wolverine mocked, or Banshee mocked him as Major Maple Leaf. You know what I mean? Like, it's just they're doing a good job of giving us superheroes with the Canadian flavor, but they're not necessarily like here's a perfect example: Sunfire. Like, that can only be a Japanese superhero. You know what I mean? Like, are you really going to have a Chinese superhero based in China, and his name is the Centipede? You know what I mean? Now somebody's going to correct me. Centipedes are big cultural Chinese, but you know what I mean? Like, or Electric Man, Captain Electricity from China. You're going to have some sort of Chinese based. Only the United States has the luxury of having we just come up with a cool theme and a cool name, and then he's American. But again, you're gonna have a Romanian superhero. He's gonna be based on Dracula or something, whatever. But I'll get to the comments. Let's talk about this page. So we got again real interesting colors here. Half a World Away, which is cutting. So this is good. This is just the language of comic books. I'm so happy that Chuck Dixon said that about Heroic Tales 1, that I understand the language of comic books. The structure of the comic book itself has to be taken into consideration when you're writing a comic book. So we have this page over here. If all of a sudden we cut to Japan in the middle of this, which you can do, but it can be a little jarring, but they had this whole page introducing Alpha Flight in Canada. And then we literally pick up our eyeballs and move our eyeballs over here. In that, like, this is just a flow. The storytelling is just dictating us. We read it in the Z pattern. We're moving effortlessly down from panel to panel. None of these panels is disconnected from the panel before. Excellent storytelling. There's nothing to pull us out of the comic. Then we literally, we do it so quick, so effortlessly, we don't think about it. But there is a break from here to here, and that break gives us time to change locations. Am I making sense, or am I talking weird? So that's a perfect perfect place to make a break, and from not just for moving our eyes, but in the comic book itself. We're going from Canada to Japan. Boom. Because we're literally lifting our eyeballs and going over there. And interesting color. Like, is the city on fire? You know, what's going on in the background? We know that there was fires and earthquakes. Are they still going on? And if so, why are they just standing there casually shaking hands? Is it just an interesting coloring choice because they didn't want to, you know? I don't know. That, to me, pulls me out of the story just a little bit. And if it pulls you out of the story a little bit, then it's kind of a failure. And notice they're doing the same thing with the coloring over here. So I'm starting to think maybe it's supposed to be it's night and they got lights set up and they just didn't want, because they used to do this and they don't do it anymore. And I got to be more aware of it for myself. But they gave each panel its own unique majority color to separate each. So I'm wondering if they picked orange because these two were yellow over here. And then, you know, we had different majority colors here. So I don't know. I mean, I think that this orange in the background is the first nitpicky mistake that I'm going to find in this comic. And I'm a nitpicker. If I was a superhero, my name would be The Nitpick. And we got these great costumes over here. So they're all saying goodbye. I like this. Banshee's, can you see the Banshee's word balloon is dotted, indicating like whispers. You know, he hurt his throat, canceling out Moses Magnum's Magnum Force last issue. Wait a minute, where's Wolverine? And then cut. So even this. So we got a nice Z over here. We're picking up our eye, moving over here, and that allows us to change locations. So they're all at the airport, shaking hands. You know, the storytelling works. Everything is fine over here. He's aware of where all this thing, nothing to jar us. And then as we pick up our eyes, move over here, we cut to a different location, and we got Wolverine sneaking off, saying goodbye to Mariko, a white chrysanthemum. So we got, it's classic, you know, Hallmark romance. We got the rough and tumble, rage-induced Wolverine and this prim and proper 1600 feudal Japan geisha woman, Marika. You know what I mean? Total opposites. You know, this is just like, he was a rough from the woods and she was, you know, connected to Japanese royalty, you know. So, like, will she just give up everything and go live out in a log cabin out in the Rocky Mountains? It's a Hallmark movie. No, instead she'll turn into a cybernetic death killing machine later on. So now I will go to the chat. I talked for a long time, so it looks like there's a lot of comments. Yang, Glynis was the best at local color. She could always draw your eyes to what was actually important in the frame. Yes, she was. Her and Tajana Wood are two of my favorite colorists. You know, and they did it all with. I don't know if they used brushes or markers. I don't know enough about the old school coloring techniques, but they are two of my favorite colorists. You're absolutely right. She would highlight what was important, de-emphasize what was not important, but at the same time, she always gave you a feeling that the world was filled with color, you know, with the exception of this panel. Maybe people believe what they want to believe. There's so much enough that people know Batman is, but it's weird that people believe he's a myth. Yeah, I mean, I think they did away with that. When they, you know, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, that was like, they were rebooting, you know, with Batman Year One and everything like that. It was the urban, but I mean, once you're on the Justice League and hanging out on the moon, you know. But also, does everybody know about superheroes? Like, it's, you know, you think like mom with 5 kids going to school, picking up kids, like, does she keep track of the exploits of, like, would she know who Nightcrawler is, or is it just like another celebrity thing? You know what I mean? So I'm sure there's people who religiously follow all the superheroes, and there's other people who just don't know who they are. You know, that's something I would like to work on in my comic, but I only got 2 issues, four half full comics of stories. Really, I thought Glynis Wynn was a woman. Yeah, Glynis Wynn was. It was the wife of Len Wein. I really like Vindicator's costumes. He's the kid. Yeah, I love this costume. I love that costume. That's why he was my favorite member of Alpha Flight. And then, spoiler, they killed him. And then once I always, whoever I picked, they always messed up. Yeah, married to Len Wein in the 70s. Thank you, Marcus, backing me up. I started to doubt myself when I said that. True, when I was a kid, my family spent a few years in another country, and while we could not understand the words, we could follow the story of a Spider-Man episode. There you go. See, that's storytelling. Who's better, Alpha Flight or the Next Men? I like the characters of Alpha Flight better, but I like the story of the Next Men better. The Next Men was a masterful piece of, what was it, like 35, 40 issues? I forget the exact number of issues, but it was all one big epic story tied together through time travel, and it worked. It's one of my favorite time travel stories, and I'm strict about time travel. USA, USA. Bolshevik man makes bread disappear. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Alpha Flight is kind of cool thematically. Yeah. Sergeant Chopsticks. There you go. The hero from China, and his sidekick Egg Roll. He's a little chubby guy who the comic relief. Like in the 50s, they had Dolby Dinkles. USA is the norm, the default of standard. Press 1 for America. Yes, for superheroes. Dracula was base. Vlad refused Muslim taxation. They wanted money and boy. Yeah, they did. It's funny to see how there's Vlad the Impaler is being seen through a new light these days. I wonder why. What's going on? Yes, they did often switch background colors to make the main character stand out more. Absolutely. I rediscovered David Bowie. I'm Afraid of Americans. Great track. That's funny because as I love David Bowie, and if you'll notice, there's a David Bowie theme going on through the Patriarch stories of Heroic Tales. Not so much Mary Stu. Not that you can tell. I only have 4 stories out, but and I love David Bowie. I have like most of his but I got to say this song I don't know, so I got to go check it out. Sounds like a cool track. True Spartan. Hi, everyone. Which modern colors do you like, John? Modern colors? I got to say, Daniel Taylor Silva, who did my comic, and Oscar. Oh, my God. You got to see the Oscar Crano, who's working on Patriarch #1 right now. You got to see the colors that he did for... there's a couple of panels I just stare at over and over again for... my story in Giant Size Punchline #1. That'll be out soon, sooner rather than later. Oh my God, his coloring is so good. But besides that, like mainstream, I can't tell because I almost gave up on the mainstream for a long time now. But Dave Stewart, I really, really like his colors. Oh my God, I would love to work with Dave Stewart. Matt Wagner used a lot of good colors, for a while. I don't know if he still colors his own stuff, but I really like his. And Dave Stewart did a lot of the colors for. I think he does all the colors for Hellboy, Mike Mignola, and the Goon, whose name is escaping me right now. They used Doc Martin dyes and Doc Martin boots. They would stomp on the comic books with their Doc Martin boots. How you doing, Stippling? How's everything? Stippling is one of the guys working with me. He's doing the Printer's Devil. It's so good. It's so good. You got to see it. You got to see the artwork. I never understood why. I'm so curious to see what it's going to look like colored, Stippling. I never understood why everyone knows Clark Kent is an alien. Superman doesn't look like one. How the heck goes the general population? Because I think the end story is Lex Luthor's telling everybody to try to undermine him, right? That he's from Krypton, and you know what I mean? Or did he give an interview with Lois Lane? You know what I mean? He looks like us to full, that would really, really work. You just think like Lex Luthor. I love the character Lex Luthor. He's supposed to be so manipulative, intelligent, and charming, like a true sociopath, that he could hoodwink. Like Superman is literally performing miracles and saving people, and Lex Luthor is just gaslighting people into being afraid of him. And like he's probably got like 20% of the population against Superman. I just think that's what I'm trying to do with Lucius Kane, the suit in my stories. Of course, there's not enough material for you to get it yet. I mean, I'm just telling you rather than showing you because I'm talking about it. I like John Byrne. John Byrne liked the X-Men better. He created Alpha Flight just to battle the X-Men. He really didn't give them... Yes. That really shocked me to find out that John Byrne didn't really like Alpha Flight that much. How can you not like them? They were so great. As a little kid, I call it the Boba Fett effect. They had 2 issues. This is the next issue, and then we didn't see him for a while, so we filled in everything in our mind how cool they were, to the point I gotta say, like the Alpha Flight comics, I was always waiting for it to get great. Like I expected greatness, and I got okay. I got good art, mediocre story. It's really, out of all the things John Byrne wrote, Alpha Flight to me was the weakest. And now I know why he didn't really like it. Art Germ is probably my favorite artist. He even does this. Oh, cool. I don't know who Art Germ is. Cool. Stanley Lau. Is that who Art Germ is? Stanley Lau, or is this a different comment? I hear what you're saying, but when people say George Bush is a reptilian, how many Americans actually believed it? It would be cool if they made it like an alien cult and believed it, though. Yeah. It's the presidents, Colonel Sanders, the English royal family, and the Rothschilds, right? They're all reptiles. I don't know. That's one of my favorite conspiracies. That and Tartaria is my new favorite conspiracy theory. So as I turn the pages, I'm taking these dog ears out of the comic. So we got art over here. And again, this is just building up the suspense. Let's go back. So a white chrysanthemum, what's going on? We know it's Wolverine from the, where's Wolverine? And then this tells us where Wolverine is. And then we got the Ed. They're using the physicality of the comic book to increase. This is the kind of stuff that you miss when you get it in trade paperback. So, I mean, we know there's an ad, so they use the ads to build up the suspense. We are physically turning the pages. We are physically through the real world, preventing us from seeing the next panel for an indefinite amount of time. But we can't just flip the pages. So we build up a little bit of suspense. And then if you're like me, you build up a lot of suspense because I always looked at it. I love these Fun Factory ads. It was so much fun. It was part of comic book culture. It was, a skull flashlight, a Venus flytrap, black soap, a phony arm cast, buggy ice cubes. I loved all that stuff. And then whatever, is this a model? Buy this car, regular price, get one. Oh, they're just racing cars. They're like Matchbox cars. Okay, 1 cent. Nice. The closest thing to real racing. And then we get back to the art. Ta-da! We knew it was Wolverine. Why? Because we're obsessed with comics. Korwana Dasuma. I'm sure Yang is going to laugh at me. A gift, little one, from a friend. Something to remember me by. It is very beautiful, Wolverine-san, and so are you. Wolverine is beautiful. Mariko-chan, my name is Logan. Be seeing you. And there we go. A rare smile. Why is the background red? Because it's red. That's why. Just to separate everything, Now, is this John Byrne like a legal cheat to make the easier to draw, to hit the monthly why can't I think today? That's because I stayed up too late, woke up too early. I went to bed at 4 and then woke up at 9. But it works. This is the kind of thing that could only work in comics. We got this fence, the car, the ground, and then just red. Why? And now we're cut to a plane. Night passes and miraculously becomes morning the next day. So now they're flying. So remember, this is still like an epic quest. The X-Men were kidnapped in what? 107? 108? And brought to East Bum F and stayed in a carnival for weeks, months, who knows? So they've been missing for a long freaking time. You know, they were taken against their will and mesmerized by Mesmero, and then that Mesmero was just unceremoniously dismissed by Magneto. It was like a very unfulfilling fight. Magneto took them to the Savage Land, you know, Antarctica. From Antarctica, they went to the Savage Land, and then from the Savage Land to Japan, and now from Japan, they're going to end up in Canada. So this is just like none of this. So literally now, this is like a year, and nothing is like mutants persecute. You know, these aren't the crying X-Men yet. That's after John Byrne. A little bit of wokeness over here. We got 2 female pilots. What are the odds? What are the odds? Storm's getting worse, Annie. Anchorage and Juneau airports are closed. Conditions at Vancouver and Seattle are deteriorating. Looks like we'll have to jump the Rockies. Take cover, Jill. Annie and Jill. They're finally asleep. Scott Summers and Colleen Wing have been together talking nonstop since they left Tokyo. Pity I have to break them up. So Scott thinks Jean Grey is dead. And they made a weird point. They made a really weird point of saying Scott doesn't feel anything. Like, and then they don't really mention that again, or maybe they do and I don't remember. But so Scott thinks Jean is dead, and he's like, I can't mourn. I don't feel anything. Is this just like his personality? Like he's so tight because he's so used to being in control because of his power? Or are they saying that he isn't in love and maybe Jean Grey is manipulating him? Or is it like just a weird thing that they put in the story and realized it was a mistake too late? I don't know. But I love this. It's not a typical airplane. It's like a luxury liner. So, and I like that. So Colleen Wing and Scott Summers are cozying up. You can't really tell, but they're cozying up on each other. They've been talking. She said he's cute. Here they are right here, just literally sleeping together, just sleeping on a couch together. Nothing like, you know, R-rated about it. Just being really like kind of wholesome, talking until they fell asleep. And then it's never really mentioned again. You know, Cyclops did have like a string of like little girlfriends, not little like as in miniature, like little 1 or 2 episodes. Like my favorite was Lee Forrester, the girl from Florida that he encountered with Man-Thing, you know. And then the island of Relay from Cthulhu arose, that weird story. Could you come up to the flight deck? I think we have a problem. What's wrong? The forecast for us, clear weather all the way to New York, but an hour ago this freak blizzard blew from nowhere and shut down every airport west of the Rockies. We changed our course from San Francisco and the storm moved to cut us off. We vectored for Hawaii and it closed it, blah, blah, blah. That you normal storm. Scott, I sense a wrongness. I was just about to call you, Oro. We've run into some single-minded weather. Could you do something about it? So Storm comes out, and then this is why every red-blooded boy in America loves Storm. So she comes out, and she just opens up her robe and does her mutant magic. She gestures. Her eyes becoming pools of cobalt fire. She reaches with the mind, body, and the soul. Cyclops, the storm resists me. Some outside force and intelligence controls the storm. Dun, dun, dun. So we know something's up, but we get a tastefully nude shot obfuscated by colors, you know, and that's Storm. You know, that's why every red-blooded boy loves Storm. She's not afraid to be naked. For the love of heavens, no more. The strain is starting to tear their... Okay, Storm. Obviously, someone's going to trouble to capture us, and I, for one, am curious to find out why. So the hours pass, the world around... So what happened is the storm is hurting the plane to where it wants to land. So They are being guided by, and we know now it's Shaman. So, did Shaman ever do anything this powerful later on? And I'm also calling BS because later on, we get to know Michael II Youngman's character, and would he have done such a massive spell to kidnap somebody? Basically, that's what they're doing. They're kidnapping the X-Men, but at this point, the Alpha Flight are tabula rasa. Like Marcus said in the chat, John Byrne didn't really go into their background. They're just villains of the week at this point. People like them, and then they slap backstories onto them later. This is like the Punisher. When the Punisher showed up, he was hired by what? The Kingpin to kill, or he was hired by the Jackal to kill Spider-Man. You know what I mean? And then later on, we learned about the Punisher. So, there you go. This is just we didn't think that this was going to be such a big deal. We'll add on to it later. And let's go to the chat before I turn the page. Oh, we got Dave Brink, Genuine Comics here. Check out, he's got a Kickstarter and to fund my comic for Perfect 10. It's I think the campaigns are closed, but if I'm correct, you can still order them. Get issue 6 or the trade paperback, hardcover. That's what I did. I got both. John, is it true that Marvel and DC don't print paid advertising in their books anymore? You said ads make comics cheaper. Why stop? Again, I haven't bought any new Marvel or DC off the rack since 2015. I have bought back issues, I think up to 2017 or 18 in Fantastic Four. And you guys tell me, is there outside ads in modern Marvel and DC comics? I think it's all house ads. And yes, these ads, the Fun Factory, that car, movies, they all paid a lot of money to be in comics, and that subsidized the price for us little kids. And it was a symbiotic relationship. I'm sure you know that, But the more they got in ad revenue, the less they charged little kids. The less they charged little kids, the more little kids bought the comic, the more it made it attractive to advertisers. So now it's the opposite. The less people who buy comics, the less advertisers see them as a way to get eyeballs on their product. And then less and less advertisers means they have to raise the price. And since they raise the price, less and less people buy them. I can only quote Obi-Wan Kenobi so many times. Storm in a robe and an open robe. An open robe. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Nudity and natural tribal. Yep. That, for all the regalness and the goddess, Storm was the cheesecake of the X-Men for the longest time. Sup, y'all? How you doing? Once was cool. How's it going? So now we're going to turn the page. More ads. None of these are house ads yet. This Johnson Smith company. Where are there even novelty companies? I bet you it's all like China now, right? China. I bet you it's all China. They don't make anything like this in the States anymore. Comic back issues, 150,000 Marvels in stock. I wish I knew about this at the time. I mean, I could have gotten real expensive early comics at this point. Even at this point, I keep saying the comic book store near me had Amazing Fantasy 15, Uncanny X-Men 1, and they did have a copy of Fantastic Four #1, but I don't remember the price. But I do remember Amazing Fantasy and Uncanny X-Men was $60 a piece. That was a lot of money back in 1970, but it wasn't unreasonable. Like, it wasn't unobtainable. You could save up and get those. I remember seeing a Fantastic Four #1 being advertised for $100. Back in comics in these like Mile High comic collections back in the late 70s, early 80s. I could have saved up and got it. Wolverine's here, Scott. Shall I wake the others? Not yet. Let them get the rest. They're going to need it. So this crate is a flying gas can, Scott, but even it has limits. With Edmonton stock, we either land at Calgary or we crash. So the landing in Calgary, Canada. Okay, Roger, Juliet Hotel 1, you're cleared for runway 7. Wait till that special operation team and the pigeon are fine, blah, 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 blah. So now we got the text. Everything's landing. That's odd. The taxi route tower gave us the will to take us as far from the terminate as we could get. Storm, we're going to be attacked. So Cyclops, being the strategist, he's figured out. So they were cleared to land. They gave him a runway that's as far away from the terminal as possible. They've been herded here. Cyclops, like, this is where the ambush is going to happen. And then we got Vindicator out here glowing. Wolverine, you know who this is, and you know why I'm here. Surrender now, and your friends don't get hurt. Resist, and I won't be responsible for what happened. You got 1 minute to make up your mind. What the? Isn't he the character who attacked you last summer? Stay out of this, bub. This is my fight. So X-Men 109. So this is the Canadian super team just acting like villains. This is just villainy, you know. We used magic to make this storm. Like, I know you're not supposed to think of this kind of stuff, but I can't help but think about this. This is a storm that shut down airports throughout North America. They made a point of saying from Juneau to Vancouver and Seattle. Was anybody killed? Was anybody hurt? You know, was there property damage? You know, anybody's roofs hurt, you know, with car accidents, all to kidnap Wolverine, who resigned. This is full-on supervillain territory, and this to me is why, you know, Alpha Flight. It's just proof that they didn't really think it. They're just villains of the week. Villains of the week. You know what I mean? Like, the Canadian Prime Minister is just willing to do all this. Like, how many billion? He was talking about the cost that they spent on Wolverine. What is the cost of shutting down all the airports? Because from Juneau to Vancouver, this is all Canadian. You know, how much commerce disruptions, now repairs. Like, I know Canada doesn't care about money these days. I'm learning that, you know, they're doing crazy things, destroying their own economy. But this 1978, I like to think that they were a little bit more fiscally responsible. All to get a guy who just quit, who just left. One guy. You know, this storm probably caused more damage than all the money they put into Wolverine. I'm just guessing. I can't help but think. So this is just like crazy supervillainy. You know, sheathe those claws, Wolverine. This isn't the time or place for a rumble, not with innocent people aboard. Turn this crate around and get us off the ground. You heard the man, Jill. The wheel isn't responding. This is crazy. I've got the engines at full throttle, but we're standing still. So what's going on? You know, all the expert. I like how Banshee's in civilian clothes. Okay. Colossus is, I guess he sleeps in tiny whitey. But then Nightcrawler, that's it. You don't. You're always in your costume, you know. And Ming got Banshee, Colossus over here. The landing lights show a man's shadow, and I think he's stopping it with his bare hands. I love that. This is definitely a nod to William Shatner's Twilight Zone episode. You know, and William Shatner being Canadian, so it just works in so many ways. And we got this. I'm also calling BS on it, though. You know, how is he standing on the ground, stopping the airplane? I don't care how strong you are. He's not braced. He's just got feet on the ground. So you tell me the friction of his feet on the ground is enough to stop the thrust of a giant airplane? So even as a kid, I called BS on that. I mean, it works. It's cool. But the physics, to me, it strains reality too much. It pulls me out of the story. I mean, just that image alone is cool. And then he throws the airplane back. It's so freaking cool. But it ruins physics. And it cements Alpha Flight as villains. You know what I mean? Like, they need a lot of repair. So again, they make this storm. They cause all this damage because they're just following orders. You know what I mean? They're just following orders. And then they just grab an airplane. They know that it's not just Wolverine on this plane, and they're throwing it backwards, and we got a little bit of a break, suspension. Oh, comments. I got so into this. The sequence of the follows proves Sasquatch was way stronger than people thought. Jumbo jets weigh more than 100 tons. Yes. This sequence put Sasquatch into the 100-ton plus group. Yep. Here we got Saber, The Art of John Buscema, The Art of Frank Thorne. Frank Thorne, I love Frank Thorne so much. His art. Whoppers. All of this stuff is non-Marvel. Heroes World. This made the comic cheaper. How much they paid. They had a whole marketing division. Does Marvel even have a marketing division whose job it is to get outside firms to advertise in their comics? So look at this. So helpless, the jumbo jet careens across the fields towards an old derelict hangar. At least they say derelict. There's nobody there. Its engines thundering even above the howl of the storm in a desperate, vain attempt to prevent a tragedy. Boom. Sasquatch, you incredible lummox. Lummox is a word you don't get to say. I told you to stop the plane, not smash it. Sorry about that. I guess I don't know my own strength. That's for sure. I thought only the Hulk was capable of stunts like this. Good thing the tower said they were almost out of fuel. That should lessen the chance of fire. Even so, I better get everyone out of this wreck fast. Well, I hope nobody's hurt. Alpha Flight going to be in a lot of trouble for this mess. What is that possible? The plane's empty. Hey, the storm, it just doubled in intensity and closed in over the airport like it's not supposed to do that. Shaman, I thought you were going to phase out your blizzard the moment the plane touched ground. This is not my doing, Vindicator. One of the X-Men must have power over the elements. He's turning my weather spell against me. I don't know if I can stop him. We cut things real close, boss, but we got out and no one spotted us. Thanks, Wolverine. Aurora Storm should give us cover all the way to the terminal. We'll plan out our next move when we're out of this wind. So everybody got out of the plane, but Sasquatch didn't know that. This is just, I know superheroes fight. You're not supposed to think about all the collateral damage, stuff like that. But, who owns this plane? Is the Canadian government going to reimburse them? You know what I mean? There's lawsuits. This is going to cost a fortune to recover a guy that quit. No comments. So I'll just go to the next page. So now the X-Men are mingling in the Calgary airport. This is the second time this Major Maple Leaf has called you out. And this time, who are they and why are they after you? I told you, Bub, it's my fight. Not anymore, Bub. The coast is clear, Cyclops. Let's move people and hope it isn't wall-to-wall Mounties. So this is this John Byrne and his girlfriend? Is this Glynis Wynn? Whenever they put close-up faces in the comics, it's usually an in joke. So Marcus, who is this? Is this Dave Cockrum? And I don't know. So far so good. The blizzard's trapped a lot of the planes, so everybody's stuck. The X-Men are just walking about the airport, going through the terminal, and Nightcrawler is teleporting around to check everything. I think I'm learning the limits of my teleporting talent. Colleen said that the city was about 7 miles from the airport, and I made it in 3 jumps. So there you go. 7 miles divided by 3. So this is Calgary. It looks not much to look at, but then again, what city is when you're on the run? I haven't felt like this since Whistledorf, and I don't mind. I don't like it much. I came in front. So what happened? Nightcrawler is feeling outcast. He's in his costume. He doesn't fit in the way he looks. He's on the run, and he's scouting about, trying not to be seen. And boom, I always like this. Stay where you are, X-Men. You'll not be harmed. I love that. Stand still, you'll not be harmed. He stands still, and they still punch him. No shadows must teleport my eyes. Suddenly, Nightcrawler is enveloped in pure elemental light. In a moment, he's too stunned to move or think. In that moment, he's unconscious, Sister One Gown. You hit him very hard, brother. I hope he isn't hurt. Despite his appearance, he's like us, a mutant, and I don't like hunting my own kind. So this is pure villain. I never realized, well, I haven't read this in so long, but the Alpha Flight are just villains, and you could just tell You know, stand still and you won't be harmed. He stands still, they harm him anyway. Sasquatch just throws an airplane. You know, Shaman creates this freaking killer storm. You know what I mean? Like, this is just pure villainy. All right, no comments. I will go to the next. Am I still alive? People still here? What do you guys think? And now we got this advertisement over here. Wonderfully old school. What's this? John Buscema, John Romita artwork for these characters. So Calgary. To many, it's the gateway city to the Western Canada, a sprawling, young, vibrant metropolis made up of old and new. Not of old and new, but of new and very new. Its centerpiece is the inner city renaissance, is the Calgary Tower, a 600-foot spine of concrete outside of which are some very worried X-Men and their friends. We have checked all the nearby streets, Scott. There's no sign of Kurt, or of Banshee, or of Storm, or of Wolverine. Relax, Scott. We made pretty good time. Maybe the others just got held up. Maybe, Misty, but we're on Hudson's turf and fighting by his rules. We can't afford even one mistake. So the X-Men are on the run. They're just hiding, scattered, which I don't understand why they're doing it. Actually, some of Cyclops' missing team members are a lot closer than he thinks, barely 3 blocks away in a plush boutique on the 3rd level of Toronto Dominion Mall. So this is just John Byrne. This is where John Byrne lived. He was from Calgary. So I guess he's just showing off his local knowledge. So Banshee is smoking because that'll get his throat back. You know, he damaged his throat. You know, he screamed so hard to counter Moses Magnum's power that he damaged his muscles. So he's basically powerless right now. So smoke, that'll help you, Banshee. So we got Colleen Wing is takes Storm to the store. Remember, she was in a bathrobe. You know, so was Colossus, but Colossus seems to have clothes. But you know that. Remember, Colossus came out in the bathroom, but now he's magically got clothes. So Storm, they're making a big deal about buying her clothes so she can fit in. I love it. I'm not so sure. Ta-da! Oh, we got didn't Kurt have an image inducer a while ago? Yes, he did, and then they got rid of it. And I agree with the decision to get rid of it. They just stopped referencing it. Now you could say it makes sense that he got rid of it because the last time he had it, because remember, they were kidnapped by Mesmero. So did Mesmero may say, make sure you bring that image induced? No, he just kidnapped them all. They weren't prepared. So why would he have it? You know, it makes sense that he just didn't have it because he was just hypnotized and taken. And so he hasn't used it since before that Mesmero affair. So it's kind of the continuity works, you know. So it makes it he hasn't been back to the X Mansion since 110, issue 110. So it's been a long time. So he wouldn't have access to it. So it makes sense. John Byrne himself didn't really like Alpha Flight. Yeah. I'm seeing that now as an adult. This is like the first time as an adult I'm looking at this comic, and I can see like they're just nasty villains. And then a lot of work to repair the damage that was done to him in this particular comic. I mean, it's Aurora. It's a Grand Alpha, but on Aurora it looks, I don't know. I guess I'm used to seeing her in the wild. I don't understand. I do. Sean is correct. I feel smothered in all these clothes. Well, they're supposed to keep you warm. Why? I'm never cold. Oh, well, back to the fitting room. That's an interesting little touch that Storm is basically immune to the effects of weather. But it's winter in Canada, so if you're trying to be incognito, I guess when you're 6 foot something, black woman with white hair, you're going to stand out, you know. They think they're giving us a slip. Whereas the blizzard scrambled our ground scans, but now our systems are recalibrated. We'll have them under lock and key. So they're flying through the city trying to find the X-Men. The X-Men just took off. My luck, the rest of Alpha Flight's got all over town. We'll have to handle this on my own. On one big advantage and surprise. So he just burns through the mall roof. I mean, just this is just reckless. This is just like reckless. just melts through the wall. Dumb move, Hudson. I probably scared those kids half to death. This isn't New York. They aren't used to. Here's the focal point boutique. This makes no sense. Banshee, you Spaline who nearly murdered Myra McTaggart by accident. X-Men 109. He reacts instinctively. He goes to scream, and he doubles over in pain. He double. Chuck, let's get you to a doctor. You got this little arrow. Hope he's all right. Pray that he is assassin, or you'll pay the price. Twice you have attacked us, James Hudson, though we have never done you any harm. And I promise, by all that we hold dear, dun, 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 using a page break to build suspense. We got Colleen Wing over here. Storm looking amazing. Again, nobody draws Storm better than John Byrne. There's no comments, so I'll just flip the page. Oh no, we got suspense being built up. Suspense. You can bend iron bars, tear phone books, smash rocks with your fist. You can do all these things. And nobody sent away. Can you imagine if you sent away and you did get super strength? I still want to do that story one day. So boom, there will not be a third. Sorry. You once spoke of power. Little man, you do not know the meaning of the word. Miss Oro, please stop it. You're wrecking my store. She turned a hurricane on and off with a thought. I knew she was powerful, but I never dreamed. Oh, my poor store. Let's go. We got to warn Scott. Got to get the others. So she's freaking out. Don't blame her. This guy attacked twice. The X-Men are trying to get home. They haven't been home in months. They've been reacting to everything. Loss of control, and now she just lashes out and just, But you know what? Don't attack somebody and then get upset at how they react. I'm talking to you, stupid protesters in Minnesota. So much for my macho pride. No way can I handle that woman alone, not without risk of the destruction of the small and everyone in it. Some superhero and team leader I'm turning out to be. Perhaps Heather was right. I'm just not cut out for this kind of life. I never wanted the job in the first place from the beginning. It was meant for Wolverine. Do you recognize that energy trail? Yeah, so it's that God spotting Hudson, Major Maple Leaf. I fear he has found Storm. So, they split the team for no reason whatsoever. But Cyclops like, all right, I made one mistake. We got it. Hudson works with mutants. It stands to reason that they might have some sort of device to pick up. Somehow I assumed we were safe. Instead, it made us more vulnerable. Some things never change. All the big shiny skyscrapers downtown can't hide the poverty. They just make it harder to find. It's been a long time. I wonder if Crackle and Roses still runs her social club. So Wolverine, of course, he knows all the seedier aspects of Calgary. And Crackle and Rosa, nothing like a Neil Diamond song to show you how tough a person is. I was a wild kid back then, and she was my kind of woman. So where do I get off falling for a lady like Mariko Yashida? Love. Who needs it? Boom. This just works out so good. So he's looking for Crackle and Rosa when he was a kid. Now, again, Wolverine's backstory wasn't made up, yet. So how is he a kid in Calgary? And if he knew this Crackle and Rosa when he was a kid, that makes her 300 years old. You know what I mean? So this is a continuity error. Why? Because Wolverine's story was still a mystery. And supposedly he didn't remember anything before, the adamantium because of the damage to his head. It's so there you go. So is he just saying kid just like as more innocent before the X-Men? Whatever. We don't know. And then we got just full on villainy over here. Thump. That looks like atmosphere generation that manipulate. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I got to sneeze. The way her power works is she's pulling in all the elements from the ambient weather. So, and it's so easy to do because the weather is messed up from Shaman's storm. So, and it's magical storm. So maybe this is why she's able to do all this so quick, because the magical elements have already disrupted the weather. And something to think about. Lisa Roberts is laughing. That's literally a storm cloud in the ceiling of the store. I know. You know, it's cool looking. I always had a problem with Logan's mystery origin box. Yep. Yeah. They it's one of the cool things, and it's also like a little problem, but like it's a piece that they give it. This is a character that debuted in like 1974 in Hulk, and literally had no backstory. They didn't know anything about him other than a costume and a name. And then 76, he's put the X-Men, and now he's been around for 4 years. We had Len Wein, and now we had Chris Claremont writing him. And then later on, we got all these people. So I always like, it's a Lego sculpture. Each writer puts a couple of pieces into the Lego sculpture, and then you make do with this weird chimera that you built. In modern comics, regular mainstream comics, you don't usually have the luxury of one guy coming up with the full backstory, because then you got editors, and the editors are hired and fired, and then the writers are hired and fired. So you got literally not a committee. A committee is all these people at once, but you got piecemeal story creation. And I don't think they did it. I think sooner or later they started to realize Wolverine really doesn't like have a past. He doesn't have a story. He's obviously older, just by the way he looks. So they came up with this cool backstory that evolved over time, and it contradicted. Wolverine was a young punk running around in Japan. Now he's a young kid running around over here with Crackling Rosa. Again, like nothing shows you how tough you are than reference of Neil Diamond songs. Thwip, where's Spidey? The man with no name. Well, he does have a name now. Now this is like the third time he referenced himself as Logan. I like this. Men's books and magazines. So you're in a shady area when there's a big sign that says men's books and magazines. So he's in the bad boy part of town because Wolverine's a bad boy. I wanted that jacket so bad. That was the coolest jacket. That meant you were cool. You if you had that jacket back in 1978, you were cool. You were an outlaw, Dottie, a rebel. We got Howard the Duck, the Iron Duck. We got Power Man and Iron Fist. And Spider-Man, he puts himself in the picture. Spider-Man, copyright 1950 Marvel Comics, the Twinkies. And again, Spider-Man is the best hero because he understands that Twinkies are the best. Twinkies are the best. It's not those horrible abominations, fruit pies. And this character is literally one of the Electric Company guys, right? Isn't he? Mr. Photo Man. There you go. Here's a villain for you, Photo Man. These ads are great. I don't know. I get such a kick out of them. Let's go to the next page. Ooh, this page is all beat up. So boom. So Sasquatch grabs Wolverine. Captain Logan, you've put me and my friends a lot of trouble tonight. Now you're going to come along quietly, or do I have to get rough? Good. I'm so glad you see things my way. Pleasant dreams. Meanwhile, across the city, Banshee and Storm are telling Cyclops of Vindicator's attack. You did your best, Wolverine. Colleen and Misty are phoning their lawyers to get some legal help, but I'm not going to wait. So Colleen, Wing, and Misty Knight, when they got Nightwing Detective Agency, that was their plane that got destroyed. They're calling lawyers. Wolverine and Nightcrawler are still missing, and we have to figure out that they've been captured. The X-Men didn't start this fight, but we're sure as hell going to finish. Over Alpha Flight's dead bodies. A shootout at the Stampede. So I like this. So Storm, after all that, she's just wearing her costume, but she's keeping her hair in under wrap. Why? Because it's easy to spot. Again, Colossus is like 6'7", even when he's in normal shape. Storm is the next tallest on the team, and then she's got this beacon of white hair, so she stands out. So they're trying to do their best to stay incognito. Which why did they deal with going to the store in the first place? You know what I mean? Why did they split up and go to the boutique? Because Storm has the ability to just summon her costume. Bing! Her costume just appears. So why didn't she just do that? I don't know. So let's look at the names. I always get a kick out of the names. We got Laurie Wilderin, Al Schroeder, Tom Parker, Don Martinez, and Gene McCauley. Chris Claremont, John Byrne are the best team Marvel ever had. Their style and complements each other perfectly. The X-Men have never been better. That's a great letter. And then we got the Revolutionary War. And we got the back cover. And then we got that. So there we go. This is the first. And I like how we really didn't see Alpha Flight except for Vindicator. We saw Sasquatch's arms. We saw them all in their civvies. You know, when he put the cards in, we saw what they look like outside of the costumes, and we didn't see them inside of the costumes yet. We just saw their arms and silhouettes, just building up suspense and tension. Like, you better believe I couldn't wait for the next issue. Oh man, it was such a good comic. You know, it really does paint Alpha Flight as real bad guys. You know, they're doing all this on their own home. They're doing this in Calgary, you know. But that's comic books for you. Looks like a lambskin coat Wolverine is wearing. Yeah, bad boy. He's a bad boy. Wolverine's a bad boy with crackling Rosa, you know. So we know Wolverine reached rank of captain, at least in modern times. Yeah, with the Canadian, you know, in Canada, he's Captain Logan. It is a cool ass cover. I gotta agree with that. Who drew the cover? Bob Budinsky and Terry Austin. I don't know why. Is it, you know, was John Byrne behind the eight ball, or did they? You know, at this point, John Byrne was, you know, fully accepted as a master. So I don't know why they didn't have John Byrne do the cover. But the Terry Austin inks really give an art continuity. The only mistake is, well, Nightcrawler doesn't have that stripe down the middle. So there you go. So that's X-Men 120. This is the first appearance of Alpha Flight, not the first appearance of Vindicator. Vindicator's first appearance was X-Men 109. As you can see, this is kind of beat up. This is it's my only copy. Got it off the spinner rack. You know, it's probably 7-Eleven. Probably when my mom wanted cigarettes or something like that. So there you go. Next issue is the full-on fight between the X-Men and Alpha Flight. And I can't wait to watch. Just these two issues were I must have read these over and over and over again. So we got Dave Cockrum still drawing the faces. I love these corner box faces. And then we got the team. It's just such a good comic. And only 35 cents. Yes, still only 35 cents, which means in a month or two it'll be 40 cents. That, like I said at the beginning, when it said still only 35 cents, they were emphasizing the fact that DC raised their prices to 40 cents and Marvel held out for another month or two. You know, when it said still only 35 cents, that meant it's going to be 40 cents real soon. So, yeah, and I still remember lunch at St. Christopher's was 60 cents, so I was still able to get a comic, save a nickel, you know. And then I used to be able to save a nickel, and at the end of the week, have enough money so I would get 5 comics. I get 1 comic book a day, and then on Fridays I was able to get 2 because I would save up that dime or nickel. But we're getting to the point now where instead of getting 6 comics a week, I would get 5 comics a week because I didn't have any change. So there you go. Anything? Bueller? So I got nothing else to say. It's snowing in New York. I want to look at the sleep for the next hour. It's gonna snow. Oh wow. It is snowing all night long. So looks like this is what I'm doing. Good day to sit home, write comics, drink coffee. So it looks like I'm shut down. usually I talk while the chat's going. Once the chat stops, once the comic's over and the chat stops, I shut it down. So I guess I'll see you next time. I got nothing really scheduled for the week. Friday we're gonna do Ant-Man versus the Atom. Jeez, I could so for it's clobbering time, midnight on Friday. It's Ant-Man versus the Atom, and I got nothing else scheduled. Wednesday we'll do a comic book team up with RJ, and then I got stacks of comics to do a comic. I wanted to do a fun thing. Maybe Dave Brink will be interested in this. I wanted to just do like a character creation just stream. Just like I'll come out here and then I'll give you three things. So we're gonna have the character, the powers, and the weakness, and the chat will pick two out of the three. You can't pick all three, so you're gonna pick either the name and the weakness, or the name and the powers, or the powers and the weakness, and then I come up with a name and try to make a real character out of it. I did that one. Well, I reacted to somebody else doing it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think that would be. So we'll just do like I don't know, character round robin, character creation. I don't know, and we'll make a game out of it. See if we can come up with some interesting characters. So there we go. Dave says it's my favorite thing. So I'll one of these nights I'll do that. Yeah, so I think that would be fun. Somebody else did a game out of making character, and they did it to be as silly as possible. Somebody alerted me to that stream, and I watched the stream, and I couldn't help but think this would be a cool character. This would be a cool character. This would be a cool character. So I reacted to it. I made a video to it, and thanked them. And I think it would be fun to do in house. So I'll have the chat come up with whatever. But the rules are you can pick two out of the three. You can't pick all three because then you're just making the whole character. So bye, everybody. Everybody's saying goodbye. We've got R.J. Williams, call sign Orion. Check it out on Fun My Comic. And I guess it's time to say goodbye, kids.
Goodbye, kids.